So this might be short-lived. If she wakes up, we're shutting it down, all right? But typically she can rest when she's this sleepy and I'm on the move, especially when I'm talking about astronomy. Now you'll see momentary periods of deep sadness for me because I'll be walking by many missing cat signs like this, and that's my boy Chase, who is still missing in action. I want to turn you the other way with me. Well, can I even do this? I can. And can I zoom? Yeah. So you see the moon. Do you see the two hawks at the top of this pine? Do you see the two hawks and the moon? Beautiful. I was seeing the moon as Maya and myself and Isabel set out for our morning walk. A little bit later today than it's typically been. Usually we're out walking beneath the stars. But Maya's learning how to sleep in a bit. And we have to take that win, you know. With some other dogs on the street. Yeah, so I noticed this moon and it's like, wow, that's very close to my natal moon phase. I've just learned the shape. Do you know the shape of your natal moon phase? How was the moon reflecting sunlight to Earth at the time of your birth? In my religion, that has a lot to do with how your unique reflection of spirit, how your soul helped you incarnate here on Earth into this place where we experience an appearance of time and space, which offers us to make moves, the opportunity to grow. And that's the whole point of the show. Anyway, how was the moon reflecting sunlight to Earth when you were born? For me, with the sun in the very first degree of tropical Scorpio and the moon at 25 Gemini, I was born at the time of the waning trine. Not exactly, yeah, with the sun at 1 Scorpio, the waning trine moon would be at 1 Cancer. So with my natal moon at 25 Gemini, it is 6 degrees before the waning trine. If you know your natal moon phase, throw it in the chat. And if you don't, put the degree of your sun and the degree of your moon, and I can see if I'll be able to help you out with that one. So anyway, I noticed looking at the moon this morning, it's like, well, that's my natal shape. And then I cast a chart and I realized that it's not yet and that it's going to happen, I'll call it tonight at around 2:40 a.m. And you better believe I set an alarm. So I'll sleep with the camera nearby and wake up and pop outside at that time if I'm not waking up naturally, which I bet I will be, to go capture a photograph of my natal moon phase at this time, this particular one, where the moon will be at the side of Jupiter. So I'm excited to see that. That, by the way, means I'm gonna have to step outside because Jupiter is very high in the northern hemisphere sky at this time. Gemini is our highest sign. In fact, moon, while at Jupiter's side, also will not be, because moon in the solstice signs especially is ridiculously out of bounds every month in 2024 and 2025. Has to do with what we call the lunar standstill cycle. And I think that's a story for another time. Besides the truth that not every lunar return is created equally. Because only like every 18 and a half years, really 18.6 years, when you have a nodal return, will the moon actually pass over the space that hosted the moon at the time of your birth. And there's all sorts of, tropical versus sidereal considerations and more. I'm not going to get into that right now. What I want to say is I noticed a few things. Is, okay, hey, that looks like my moon phase. Oh, it's not, but my moon phase is tonight at 2:40 something a.m. So set an alarm. And wow, moon will be near Jupiter. And hey, Jupiter's very close to my natal moon degree, which is Maya's natal sun degree. We have that fun synastry of baby's sun conjunct daddy's moon. And so it makes lunar returns a little more special for me. Let's tune into Reshma, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, maybe twice, natal moon phase, because they wrote here that the sun is at 2251 Aries. I'm going to call that 23, and that the moon is at 2606 Gemini. I'm going to call that 26. Okay, so with the sun in Aries and the moon in Gemini, that's the waxing sextile, and it's almost perfectly that for you. The moon is about 63 degrees from the sun when you were born. 63 and 1/4 degree waxing from the sun. That basically is the shape that most of us use when we draw the glyph of the moon, or when you see the moon in astrology softwares. That shape is pretty much the waxing sextile shape from the northern hemisphere point of view, where the moon's crescent is illuminated on the right side of her disk. Many will just call that the waxing crescent. Many prefer a system of 8 phases for the moon during the synodic month, or the lunation. Synod means meeting. So the synodic month describes the monthly meetings of moon and sun in Earth skies. That thing we call new moon, right? Moon conjunct sun. And the frequency of the synodic month, or let me say the period of the synodic month, is about 29 and a half days. Okay, so 29 and a half days go by between consecutive moon-sun conjunctions. Now, in the phase situation, the conjunction, of course, moon conjunct sun, these days we call new moon. Really, unless it's an eclipse, it's a no moon. You can't see the moon when she's in the flames of the sun. In the old lunar calendars that actually align their months to moon phases, new moon was typically a term used to describe the time when the young moon, the sliver crescent moon, was first seen in the sunset west. So after the conjunction of moon and sun, moon who moves much faster than the sun, about 13 degrees per day, where sun moves only 1. So they change in their relationship by about 12 degrees per day. It's typically the day after, or 2 days after, the conjunction of the luminaries, when moon is far enough from sun to be seen in the sunset west. And because that's where we first see the visible new moon, the maiden moon, Diana's bow, the helo moon, the young waxing crescent. Many of the old calendars begin their days at sunset. Now that might sound backwards. Don't days begin at sunrise? In weird modern clock time, we begin our days in the middle of the night. Riddle me this. Why begin at sunset? Well, because if you're actually aligning your calendar months to the phases of the moon, the first moon of the month, the young moon, is seen at sunset in the sunset west. Yeah? So if that's the first day of the month, then the next day is going to be sunset the next day and the next and the next. Now, because the average period of lunation or synodic month, the time it takes from one moon-sun conjunction to the next is 29 and a half days, the old calendar systems would alternate. I would love to talk more about calendar kung fu and the challenges that are presented by having a system of 29 and a half day average months on the calendar, because 12 of those is only 354 days, not a year. But I don't think it's the time for that. I want to get back to this idea of an eightfold system of lunar phases that's utilized by most astronomers in modern time and most astrologers in modern times as well. And 8 is going to be a key number that finds its way into our conversation as well. So 8, octile, an eighth of the wheel, right? Cut the quesadilla in half, opposition, cut it in half again, square, quadrants, cut it in half again, octile, eighths, right? So an octile, an eighth of 360 degrees is 45 degrees. So many utilize a system where from moon-sun conjunction, a phase angle of 0 degrees, right? Conjunction, same degree, to moon 45 degrees further along in the zodiac than sun, the waxing semi-square or waxing octile, that 45 degrees of moon-sun dance would be called the waxing, well, the new moon phase actually. And then from 45 degrees to 90 is the waxing crescent. From 90 to 135 degrees, which is 3/8, sorry. That would be the waxing half moon. And from 135 degrees of moon from sun to 180, the waxing gibbous, 180 to 225, full moon, like that. Some prefer to center those key phases in the middle of the range so that, for example, instead of full starting when the moon is opposite the sun, that 180 degree phase angle, the opposition between moon and sun, would be the center of the 45 degrees of fullness. So it's interesting then because it brings you into 16th divisions of the circle, which are each 22 and a half degrees. So 180 minus 225 degrees, 180, minus 22.5 degrees, to 180 plus 22.5 degrees would be the 45 degrees of fullness. And that's actually in better agreement with our visible experience, since the moon really does look full by phase, like the day before and after, sometimes even 2 days before and after the actual moon-sun opposition. All right, let's do a Another example here, Stacy writes that the sun is at 1 degree Pisces and the moon is at 24 Taurus. And then gives her ascendant as well. Yeah, so sun in Pisces, moon in Taurus. Here again, we have the waxing sextile, right? Now, your prenatal new moon would have actually been in Aquarius because the moon has just entered, the sun has just entered Pisces, right? So when we rewind time before your birth, the sun, even the day before, or even the day of, depending on what time you're born, would have been in Aquarius. And when we rewind 5 days before your birth, we will find that the moon and the sun met in Aquarius. The sextile takes about 5 days. Sextile's 60 degrees. Moon and sun separate when moon is waxing away from the sun by, on average, 12 degrees per day. And the phase angle continues to increase until 360, changing by about 12 degrees per day. So 60 divided by 12 degrees per day, 5 days. Now, unlike Rishma, it's not as close to a perfect sextile when you were born, Stacy, because the sun's at the 1st degree of Pisces and the moon's at 24 Taurus, where Uranus has been playing recently. And so you're more like 84 degrees, 83 degrees away, okay? And still, depending on the system you prefer, many will put that in the waxing crescent moon because they won't begin the half moon stage until moon squares sun, which means moon 90 degrees from the sun. But certainly, while that moon, when you were born, had some curve, it's much closer to the straight line of the square, which is the waxing half moon, right? You're pretty close there. Harmonically, you're closer to the binovile. Novile being a ninth of the circle, which is 40 degrees. 40 times 2, 80 degrees. So with your moon, 83 degrees further along the zodiac than the sun, it's pretty close to that binovile phase. And we could get harmonically more specific, but I couldn't do that without a calculator, frankly. All right. Now, when will you see your lunar phase return? How often is that image in the heavens available to you? And I should say that if you were born with moon within the 15 degrees of the sun on either side, depending on the sign, but generally speaking, you belong to a phase that cannot be seen, right? It's under the beams of the sun. And that's not bad, but it's different. And so that's just something to know, okay? But like Stacy, you have moon 83 degrees waxing from the sun. How often would you be able to witness that shape of the moon? And the answer is about every 29 and a half days. Okay, well, because it's 29 and a half days, if you see your moon shape in the nighttime sky, the next month, it's going to be in the daytime sky because 29 and a half days. And there's a bunch of intricacies that can challenge the generality of that comment, but we're going to stay there for now. All right. Well, so there are many types of months. And the month of phase, which is the month that most of us naturally visualize, when we talk about phases related to the moon, and think about this, the moon's phase is actually the relationship between moon and sun as viewed from Earth. So really the phases of the moon, they connect all three of these things: sun, moon, and earth, spirit, soul, and matter. Which makes me feel like letting the dog off the leash for a little bit. Especially because, hey, Izzy, come here. We had a pet psychic friend tell us Chase might be around, the area where I'm currently walking. So we'll let the bloodhound do some sniffing. Okay, so again, the synodic month, the lunation, the month of phases, 29 and a half days. Or really, now that we have the decimal in our mathematics, which by the way is relatively new, we have calculated that the average, and that's a very important word here, the average period of lunation is 29.53059 days. And believe it or not, that 0.0359 really matters over lengths of time. Sorry, I'm out of breath. It's cold and I'm walking up a steep hill, and I think I strapped the baby carrier a little too tightly. Got some corset experience going on as we talk about the moon. Okay, so that's only one of many types of months. The synodic month, the month of phases. Hey, baby. Another type of month would be the moon through the zodiac degrees, the tropical month. And that's about 27 1/3 days long, okay? So I was born with the moon at 25 Gemini, and that's going to happen about 7:11 a.m. tomorrow, and so I'll be up for it. Unfortunately, the sun will be too, so I'm not going to get to see the stars that moon was aligned to when I was born. And another thing to consider is that since I was born almost 49 years ago, my birthday is Thursday on the calendar, but Wednesday astronomically. Some might say Tuesday. In the 49 years of my life, the tropical zodiac has precessed through the constellations by about 3/4 of a degree. So when I see the moon returning to 25 tropical Gemini, where she was when I was born, the tropical placement is no longer the same as the sidereal placement, or star-based placement of my birth. Chase! Journey safely home, boy. We love you, boy. I'm in the zone, as you can tell, of where I was told Chase might be recovering. All right. Well, a unique thing is happening for me tonight, which is that the moon will return to the same degree of the zodiac that hosted her travels when I incarnated almost 49 years ago. Just shortly after, she returns to the same phase. Okay, so we have a lunar return by degree on average every 27.3 days. 27.21559, but who's counting? So every 27 28-ish days, the moon will return to the zone of the zodiac that hosted her travels at the time of your birth. That's called your tropical lunar return. If you prefer the tropical zodiac, the Earth zodiac, as I do, or a sidereal lunar return, if you prefer star-based or sidereal or constellational zodiacs. And the two periods of the moon's tropical degree return and the moon's sidereal degree return are very slightly different. So over time, like over 49 years, there's a significant actual visible difference. There's a difference of about 1 degree in 72 years, right? So at 49, I'm about 3/4 of the way to that mark. I was at 48. Okay. Now, we have, I'm going to use the tropical zodiac, a tropical lunar return about every 27.3 days. The return of the phases about every 29.5 days. So, a great riddle is how often do we have both simultaneously? And this is going to bring us to a different image of 8 in regards to the magic of the sun, moon, and earth. But let's get to 8 via 9 minus 1 first. And let's flip that 9 and 1 around and consider 19, which is, if you know, the sun card of the tarot. Why? Or why, when I witnessed the beautiful zodiac in square on the floor of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., do I find in the center a sun with 19 rays? 19, what is this? Well, these days, a period of 19 years is called the Metonic cycle, named after a Greek astronomer, Meton. Though, really, there are calendar systems that predated that Greek astronomer by centuries, even potentially millennia, that knew about the importance of the 19-year synchronization of moon and sun, or sun, moon, and earth. So get your calculators out and multiply 29.5 times 235. All right, so how many days in the length of 235 average lunations? Would somebody actually do that calculation and put in the chat what the answer of 235 times 29.5 is? And maybe I shouldn't wait for that, but let me just tell you that it is almost exactly equal to the period of 19 years. So you can do 29.5, the average days of a lunation, times 235, right? So 235 lunations, or 235 synodic months, divide by 19, and you will see that your result is a number very close to 365 and a quarter. The days in a solar year, right? Hey, baby. Now, see, Maya gets upset when I speak Julian. Huh, honey? She's definitely in favor of the Gregorian Advent. And this might be the end of part 1 of this jam, and I'll have to continue later. Let's see if we can do this. Because this Honu is hatching. Come here, honey. Hi. Hi. I need to take this shirt off so we can get you out of this thing, all right? There you go. Hi, baby. Hi. I'm sorry that I said the tropical year was 365.25. I know you enjoy precision. I know you enjoy precision. Hey, thanks to Ann and Shell for doing the math. You wrote 235 times 29.5, so 235 average lunations, 6,932 and a half days. Okay, and we got 2 of the same results, so that feels good, right? Would you please divide that number by 19 and tell me what you get? So the question would be, 235 lunations divided by 19. Hey, honey, how was your nap? I'm talking about Mama Moon. You see Mama Moon? You see Mama Moon, baby? Mama Moon. See Brother Sun here? Yeah. The one light. One light, one sun lighting everyone. One moon changing, helping us incarnate on Earth. All right, shiny screens, not our favorite thing for you to look at. Here, hop into your cloud car. Are you able to get situated? Izzy, come here and sit. All right. Yeah, let me just fast forward. Okay, so what you will find is that 19 years is almost exactly equal to 235 lunations. And the math gets more interesting if you use, now with the power of the decimal and further research, experience, understanding, these numbers for the lunation, 29.53059 days, maybe do 29.53. And instead of 365 and a quarter days for the solar year, and this is why we needed a Gregorian calendar shift from the Julian, the year is more like 365.2422 days long. Okay, so 365.2422 times 19 divided by 235 or divided by 29.53059, and you will find that there are almost exactly, it's off by a couple hours, almost exactly 235 lunations in 19 years. Now, what does that mean? That means on your solar returns that are multiples of 19. 19, 38, 57, 76, 95, that on those solar returns, you will also be experiencing a lunar return. Okay, so sometimes it looks like almost exact to the degree. Sometimes it can even be a day before or after that the moon returns on your multiple 19 solar returns. But regardless, in this metonic frequency, this 19-year frequency, which the old calendars used to synchronize the calendar of lunar months or lunar phase months with the seasons of the solar year, you will have lunar return by degree and by phase at your birthday. Now, there's this other interesting magic. So let me talk 8s and 11s. And of course, 11 plus 8 is 19. All right? So I am turning 49 on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, depending on your calendrical philosophy, your astronomical philosophy. Hey, I'm going to fly you for a second so I can do a strap situation, okay? You can just fly here for a minute, baby. Oh, sorry, y'all. This one's always tricky. I figured it out. Okay. On the 8/11s in between, okay? So for example, 38 is 19 times 2. When I was 38 years old, I experienced my second metonic return. And I had a lunar return very close to my 38th solar return. We all do, because 19 years is almost exactly equal to 235 lunations. Okay. And by the way, those calculations are depending on averages. And so it doesn't look the same for all of us. It depends on how fast the sun is moving, which depends on how fast the Earth is moving in our orbit. It depends on more so how fast the moon is moving during the time of your birth and during the time of your metonic returns. But generally speaking, you will have a lunar return during solar returns at 1938, 57, 76, and 95. The 19s. Check it out. It's an amazing thing. And then we get these ones that happen on the 8s and the 11s in between. And frankly, I'd have to be sitting, well, I have a bunch of slides around this that I like to show people in more advanced sacred astronomy classes, because I believe calendar kung fu and getting right with the lights from Earth's point of view is like an important, essential path of self-initiation for the student of the stars. What do you think, baby? Yeah. She's like, you say that 365.25 stuff and I will wake up from a nap. Right? Yes, you will, baby. All right. Anyway, so I am now turning 49, which is 38 plus 11. And it's also 57 minus 8. All right. On the 8s, 11s, it can also happen at 38 plus 8, that's 46, which is 57 minus 11. On the 8/11s in between the 19s, it won't be nearly as precise, but we do also have lunar phase return, lunar degree returns, very close to our birthdays. And so that's an experience I'm having right now, and it's not something I had been tracking. In fact, I wouldn't necessarily see it in my solar return chart. But I just walked outside today with this beautiful being, who now will be carried home. And I noticed that the moon was very similar to my lunar shape. And I know my birthday is next week, so that the sun's very close to where he was when I was born. And I was like, oh yeah, 49. It's 38 plus 11. So there's that other place I told you the 8s would return. Now, I spoke a little bit about Tarot 19 card before. Well, if you know, there's been this kind of weird thing about 8s and 11s getting flipped. Like the Rider-Waite system, as they call it, or Waite-Coleman-Smith. Flipped the 8 and the 11 so that they could tie the cards closer to a zodiacal order. And then if you know Crowley, switch them back. And so there's been this interesting traditions of 8s and 11s in the Tarot system as well. And it happens in this interesting dance of the luminaries from Earth's point of view. And this is why you don't let the dog off leash when there's deer in the neighborhood. So I'm thinking I better hang this up so I can gently remind my dog, Izzy, that is not cool, honey. Uh-oh. Bye, y'all. Bye-bye.